I see why he's getting on us. There's not too many attending stuff on.
No. Good afternoon. Hi, 10 George Realty. We have attendees in the room, so thank you for coming. I'm doing a training because I was getting questions from one of our agents about counteroffers. So every time I get a question, it's an opportunity for me to grow as well. So I'm going to share with you my deep dive on them. Just to refresh my skill set on it. So we're going to go over the counteroffers and a couple of other forms. This meeting will probably last about a half hour, so I'm going to do a screen share now. Okay, so first we're going to start with a seller counteroffer. Now, the question I was getting last week was, I got this counteroffer over the weekend and I can't reach my people right away. Can they accept another offer in between? Sure. It's all documented. But I want to go over the top portion first. So on the terms, you see number A, liquidated damage and arbitration of disputes. These are not applicable, even if you put them in the contract and your clients initialed them, unless all parties initial. So if it's extremely important to your client, I would ask the agent to send back that page with the initials of the opposing, either the seller or the buyer. You want to make sure that if those are important and your client initialed them, you want to make sure you get that second set of initials, because it is not applicable unless everybody signs it, okay? Or you can specifically counter it in to include it into your counter offer.
That's if we can't get to your seller right away.
Well, okay, so you make an offer as a buyer and it's important, your buyer wants arbitration liquidated damage clause and they initialed it. When they counter you, if a seller counters you, you need to make sure that they're going to sign those, because if they don't sign them and it's important to your client, you need to call the agent. Can you send me the signed page of the liquidated damages and arbitration? Because it's invalid unless it's fully executed.
Okay.
Unless you write it into a counter, which normally you're not going to do, but you can do it that way. But the easier way is to say, hey, can you send me that initial page so I can show my client?
Okay.
Sometimes I like to send back the whole offer initialed properly, and then I put subject to the counter offer. But a lot of agents don't do that because maybe they're dealing with multiples, right? So they're not going to get all those offers signed. So you can either counter back that the seller provides the initialed arbitration of disputes, and the other paragraph, I'm sorry, liquidated damage, excuse me, or you can just call them and get a copy, okay? Because you want to make sure, if you wanted that included, that it is included. So unless it's otherwise agreed, the down payment and loan amounts will adjust in the same proportion as the offer. But remember, the deposit does not automatically increase or decrease, right? So the best way to do it, if you're a listing agent and you're countering, you could put sales price to be, whatever, comma, initial deposit shall be 3% of purchase price.
Can I ask you before you get too far?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if you can't get in touch with the seller, to make sure it's been signed by everyone else, and somebody could go to the seller and make an offer, and you say it's not, if it's not signed completely, it's not legit, in other words, right?
Right, and there's a cancellation form I'll show you, yeah.
Okay, but
So somebody could get in between you.
that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
If someone get in between me, the seller can go ahead and accept that offer.
If you have not accepted it and it's not fully executed, they have every right to, somebody can get in between you.
That's what I wanted you to.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what the other agent was calling me about. And I said, yeah, they can, but probably not, and sometimes it's dependent on Are we talking about a $3 or $4 million property, right? Probably somebody won't be getting in between too much because right now, loans are tight and all of that. Or if it's a really, maybe a $700,000 property, I'd be really concerned about answering, but you don't want to be sloppy in your answer. You still need to cover yourself,
Just want to get
yeah.
clarification on that they can move it in on you.
So even in C now, I don't know why they put this here because it is in the offer, but I'll show you. So they're talking about the appraisal gap. Okay, so I'm going to show you in the offer where the appraisal gap is and what it is. Now I have not seen personally, I've not seen one person use the appraisal gap, but since C is going over the appraisal gap from the offer, I'm going to show it to you. So other terms you would put here, we all know that. If you have an addendum, because sometimes there's so many terms you want to put C attached to addendum 1, but please bring it in by checking the box and also put addendum 1 here. Check it into the counter, okay, so that everything's married, okay? So there's some interesting things in this. So here's the expiration. You can let it default or you can shorten it or lengthen it. Whatever the client wants you to do with the expiration of the counter. Or here's where it comes in. Or if seller withdraws the counter offer prior to buyer's acceptance, by communicating that withdrawal, we're going to go over the form to be used. The WOO may be used. Or if seller accepts another offer prior to buyer's acceptance of this counter offer. Now you can't withdraw the offer, the counter offer, if they've already accepted it. You would have to go quick and it would have to be prior to signature. Okay. But there is a withdrawal form for that. So we'll go over that. So here the seller does have a right to continue marketing the property for sale to other buyers. And they have the right to accept any other offer they receive prior to the acceptance of the counteroffer by the buyer, as specified in 2A, which is the expiration, date, and 5. We'll go over that. So the seller signs here. This is a seller counteroffer, right? And this is just a regular counteroffer to one party, not multiple. So the buyer can, as we all know, subject to, or they can fully accept it. Make sure that if you are doing a subject to, make sure you're checking the box and adding your buyer counteroffer number in. Okay. So the buyer would sign here. Now, what I have seen, if there's late acceptance, let's say that this counter was already expired, make sure that on number 6 that is being addressed. So if the date of the signature in paragraph 5 is past the expiration date that you have in paragraph 2A, that where we have the expiration, and the seller still wants to accept this, make sure they countersign down here. Yes, we're accepting your late acceptance, okay? That has to be done to make this valid. We miss that sometimes, and including me. But let's make sure going forward that we accept it that way if it's past the acceptance date. Okay? We'll be pointing that out to you. So I wanted to go quickly over the gap. Like I said, I have not seen this used. But what they're referring to in the counteroffer, this is the RPA L2. The appraisal contingency is based upon an appraised value of a minimum purchase price, or so the property I offered was $1 million, right? But let's say I got 50 extra thousand. If that doesn't appraise because it's a hot property, it only has to appraise at 950. So you would put the 950 here, which clues the seller in that you are going to cover that gap of 50,000. But it's not just 50. Remember, it's all your closing costs, everything else. I have not seen that used. But since they're referencing it in the counteroffer, I wanted to mention it. Okay? The appraisal gap.
This is the appraisal.
Yeah. L2 is your appraisal gap. So whatever they're willing to throw in extra if that property doesn't appraise up to value. seller multiple counter offer. So I'm not going to go over all of this, but I just want to make sure that we all understand on a multiple. I'm going to come back to this second. So the buyer says, hey, I like your multiple. I'm going to accept it. Or they could do subject to the attached counter offer, whatever, right? So down here, remember that you're not selected until the seller re-signs in number 8. The seller must sign that box to select your buyer, or you don't have a deal.
Wait a minute.
So on a multiple counteroffer, the buyer would sign, hey, seller, I like your multiple, I'm going to accept it. Or they're going to subject to another counter, right? Now, if, you know, let's say in our example, the buyer just accepts all the terms, then in order for them to be selected to move to the purchase and go to escrow, the seller has to accept it here. That means, okay, out of all the multiples I sent out, I'm selecting you. The only one that will go to escrow is the one with the signature here. Okay, now I don't like backup offers. That's just my position. You know, every agent is different. Or the seller could say, I'm going to select you as backup position number 1, and they can do that right here. I don't normally, if it's a real hot property, a lot of agents probably won't put somebody in a backup offer. They'll probably, if something happens, they'll take it straight back to the market. But again, every agent operates their own business, but you have a way to do that here. Okay?
Michelle,
Uh-huh.
if the buyer decides to counter offer, do they still have to sign in 8?
No, they have to sign, if the buyer counters,
Agrees to everything.
they have to sign number 7 and check the box subject to the attached counter offer.
Okay. So only if they agree to accept everything is that when the seller will sign under number 8.
No, 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 no. So if we're still negotiating,
Yes.
so then now we've got more to look at, more terms. We're not going to sign number 8.
Okay.
Not now,
Okay.
because we're not settled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Only if they agree to all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So late acceptance is the same thing here. If the seller's signature in 8 is after an 8 is after the expiration of the offer, then the buyer needs to say, yeah, I'm good. I'll still take it. Okay. Because maybe the seller signed late because they're negotiating a bunch of offers. Okay. So then the buyer has to ratify it, as they call it, and say, I will accept that. Okay. So buyer counter offer, I'm just going to show you that. So this counter offer, and I was reading, you know, they're saying like, this is very important up here. The attorneys have written on this. Don't just think this isn't important to fill out. What is this counter offer pertaining to? Is it a seller counter offer 1, seller multiple counter offer number 1, or something else? But make sure that this is all filled out and dated. You know, mainly this is what they were saying people are missing is right here. So we need to make sure that we do that to keep things sequential and to make sure that it's all married together. Okay. Okay. So buyer makes this counter offer on terms and acknowledges a copy of this counter. Okay, they're going to sign here. And then here's the seller block. Acceptance. We accept the buyer counter offer if checked. Now, this gets tricky to me because what if they're countering on the seller's multiple, right? The buyer's countering on the multiple. You want to be careful not to have the seller sign this if you still want to remain multiple, correct? So for me, I'm going to put subject to, I'm going to find something to say, and I'm going to bring in another multiple, right? So that I'm not just accepting them. Maybe I'm still talking to a couple of other people. So be careful not to sign this if you want to remain multiple, okay? Stay multiple if you're in a multiple situation still. If this is the end one that you want, go ahead, okay? Because we've had some questions on that. So for me, I'm going to stay multiple if that's the intention. Okay. And the same thing, if the date of the seller's in 4 is beyond the expiration date specified up here, then the buyer has to say they ratify the acceptance and agree to the terms. Okay. Now here's a form you will rarely see used: withdrawal of offer. So if you're going to withdraw an offer, maybe because they got a higher price. So here's how you do it. Let's say you sent out a counter offer. Now, mind you, this is prior to any acceptance. Maybe 2 hours later you send it, right? So you would click the box to whatever, whichever one you're withdrawing, but that is prior to acceptance, right? Now, you can see here, they can withdraw an RRRR. They can withdraw a request for repair because maybe they want to withdraw the first one and submit a second one. So let's make sure our ducks are in the row. When we're withdrawing something, do it with the form, okay? So that we're not leaving a bunch of documents open for interpretation, okay? Here, we don't want to use 2. We do not, in our brokerage, allow you to withdraw and revoke anything orally or by text. We want the proper forms. Even though it says it here, I did confirm with Peter. I said, that's really strange that we would go oral. And he said, no text, no oral. Let's do the form. Okay. Because you could just check here and say that you called them, but then that's oh, you didn't tell me, or you know what I mean? So we don't allow that here. Okay. So you can even in this form, you see here on 3, you could also check this box and substitute, a different counteroffer, another document, or a multiple. Okay. So this form is really important if you wanted to withdraw a counter or something like that. And
Are
I
you able to alter this form in any way or shape?
probably shouldn't. What would you want to alter? Just
No,
out of
I'm just saying 'cause
curiosity.
I've seen it.
There's an other box here that they can check. But after things are fully executed, this isn't the form to be using, right?
Mhm.
So I don't want to mislead anybody and think that you can use this once everything's locked in and loaded. No, this is if you sent something out and you go, oops, I'm gonna, withdraw. Now the question is, do you call the agent first or do you just hit it? You probably just hit it with the form. This is why your delivery address is so important. So we're going to go over that. I'm going to skip this. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to get over to, where did I put it? Oh, here. So this is the last page of the RPA. And I only know this because I got caught in this when they first added this to the contract. Called the hotline. I said, the guy's not answering my delivery of a notice to perform. I'm on the last page of the RPA. I skipped a bunch of forms, but I'm going to go back. I just want to tell you how important this is. So if you look here, if I've put my email, this is the buyer's broker form. I've put my email. So that means that email that's inserted into this is my designated electronically delivered address. Why is that important? Because when I hit send to that email, it's delivered. When I didn't do that, when this was brand new, because the guy left out his email, chase him around on the form. I finally got it, had to document when I talked to him, and then I considered that delivery. So if somebody leaves out an email, please go back and have them insert their email, or they're going to fill out a DED. The seller's here.
If I see it missing, I'm going to ask you guys for a DEDA.
Yeah. It's, that's for an alternative delivery, but if they left it out, we're going to need to use it. We don't have a choice because they left it off. And make life easy for yourself. Make sure both emails are in, because the minute you hit send, it's called delivered and you don't have to chase anybody. Okay. Learn from my mistake. That was awful. Oh, here's the designated electronic delivery address amendment. So normally you would have already filled it out, but if they didn't, you're gonna fill this out and put the buyer's agent email and you're gonna put the seller's agent. Again, we prefer you do not use text for delivering important things. We're just gonna use email, okay? So that's what you would use if you didn't fill it out in the back. It's very important just to save yourself a big old headache. Oh, that was awful when I went through that. Okay. So we've already went over most of what I wanted, but the request for repair, I still get questions. Hey, can I ask for section 1? Yes, they've made the form this way. Section 1, buyer request seller to have section 1, work completed, but you do have to have a report date and you have to provide the termite inspection report with it. Can the seller say no? Sure. They're not obligated to this unless it's contractual. Okay, unless you have it in the contract. So yeah, you can always, I always recommend that even if it's not in the contract, because I saw one a few months ago where a buyer got really mad because they didn't get a termite report. That was on their agent, but they were really upset and calling in here. But the thing is, you didn't put it in your offer. You did a home inspection, but you failed to have a termite company show up. So the best advice to your clients is do it at once. Home inspection and termite. That's what seasoned agents, all of us in here, would do. Cancellation.
I'm sorry, before you go to the cancellation on the RR, say they're typing the repairs and there's not enough room.
Oh gosh, there's not. For me, because, okay, I don't like to answer on this. I think the space is too tight. So I'll tell you what I always do. I put number 2, or they respond on the RRRR. You have the whole form for yourself. And then if you don't have enough room, you attach a sheet to that. I like to respond on that. I know newer agents like to use one form because they think it's easier. But, if you're cramming yourself and you don't, but let's see. If they don't have enough room,
Say the buyer doesn't have enough room to put all the repairs they want to request. Do you see addendum, see something there?
I don't want to addendamize. Yeah, I guess you can addendamize
Like
this.
an overflow?
Yeah, and let it go overflow. But I would really answer on an RRRR because let's see how much room you have. There's not a lot of room here. See, this is where the buyer would be writing in their request, and you want to number it and have it sequential so people can understand what you're asking for. So,
That's on the RL, right?
yeah, that's on the request for repair. Yeah, you could put C attached addendum 1, but let's see how we're going to hook it up back here. Okay, even if I'm a seller and I get that, I'm going to make sure to just respond on my own form. Or, let's go over that seller agreement. A, seller agrees to all of the requests, or they agree to partial. Check all that apply. Seller only agrees to all a buyer's requests, except maybe there's a list of the exceptions that they won't do. There could also be, in addition to that the seller agrees to credit the buyer X amount, or the seller agrees to reduce the purchase price. Now, what do you do when you're giving something? You want to get something, right? So you're always going to tie it to a contingency removal. If you use this, you're going to check the box here. Seller's agreement only applies if the buyer returns the signed contingency removal that you're going to prepare and attach. Same with the RRRR. Don't give without getting. Get those contingency removals and make it subject to. Don't forget to check that box. Yeah. Because I've seen people miss that. So you just want to make sure. Cancellation. If you, I hope we don't get into this, but if we do, say it's the buyer wants to cancel. This is a single party cancellation, or it can be mutual, proposed mutual if you check the box, but a buyer can just cancel as long as it's permitted by good faith exercise of what? It's probably going to be around paragraph 12, the investigation. It's probably going to be that.
Another thing too, I'm gonna say about the cancellation. The cancellation is the only one that canceled the whole thing out. Even with, the board down there, you know, where you can go head on and not be tied to that case anyway. Withdrawals don't do it.
Oh, no, withdrawal's still
Don't do
in
it. The only-
contract.
A
Yeah.
cancellation is the only thing.
Yeah.
Can this form be altered?
No, you should not ever alter the form.
No,
Yes.
never.
Because, you know, the car attorneys have taken, 100 years of experience between all of them. I'm not exaggerating. Some of those people have been there for 30 over, years. So why do we want to second guess California, Association of Realtor Attorneys? Use the form. Now, you always want to tie it to a paragraph as permitted in good faith by what paragraph? It's usually, I tell you, it's going to be investigation, or perhaps it's merely because you couldn't get the insurance. So then you're going to tie it to that, as long as you're still within your contingencies and you didn't remove them. But don't just not check this. You should always check that and put other. I've seen lost my job, financial has changed. No, they're asking you what paragraph are you canceling under? Okay. So do it the way that I think the form is intended. So I'm going to come down here. So you always have to hit the second page, the disposition of the deposit. You're going to fill out the escrow number, the escrow company. Usually if you're canceling and you're going to be in your contingencies, you're going to check number 1. Seller authorized release of the deposit to buyer, less the buyer's fees and costs already, incurred, including if there's any escrow fee cancellation. So don't alter the form, use it as it is. If you're filling it out for your buyer and you're like, whoa, I'm nervous, are they going to charge us something? Pick up the phone and call escrow. Say, hey, I'm as you know, I'm preparing a cancellation. I need to know, are there any fees associated with canceling with your company? They'll tell you on the phone. So if you need to know, just pick up the phone and call them, okay? Please do this, even if you didn't put a deposit in. We still want it canceled. There's an escrow number. Cancel it. There's the old school, oh, you don't have nothing if there's not a deposit in.
Right.
Last time our E&O attorney was here, I specifically asked him, what if they put no deposit? We have a box here to check. He goes, yes. And he said, cancel escrow. They still issued a number. So we still want this to cancel. And then we're going to email it once the buyer and seller sign on the second page.
Mhm.
We're going to email it over to escrow.
You just hit on something. Okay, with escrow, is, when they do a cancellation, do escrow charge? Do they actually charge for a cancellation?
Sometimes they do.
Yeah,
Now,
I've
once,
never heard of that.
oh yeah, there's a cancellation fee, but I'll tell you, the ones we deal with a lot would not.
Okay.
Because there's so you always want to check with whoever you're dealing with. Is there a cancellation fee when you're preparing this? Because you want to know. I mean, because sometimes your buyers just have to cancel, right? You can't control, like, are they going to charge them 300 or I don't know what it is, because I deal with the same escrow company and she would not charge us.
I know more.
Ever.
That's where.
Yeah. And there's other companies here that we use a lot. They're never going to charge a fee.
Okay.
So you need to know that. Yeah, because there are fees associated with it. Yes. So this concludes today's training. These are just tidbits of things that we're learning and questions we're getting. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, that's mine as we were going along.
Yeah, just designated delivery address. I can't stress that enough. So, okay.
That's
So,
our email address, right?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just make sure they're filled in, because when I got caught on that, he didn't put his email, and then the attorney's like, no, 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 now you gotta call him and make sure, and you gotta write down when you
Okay.
talk to him and told him. And then it was hard for me to get a hold of him, so I was freaking out a little bit. So just
Now-
make life easy.
Who should be filling out that form?
So
The bottom portion.
the bottom, it has to be the seller's firm. And it says it right here that it's to be filled out by the seller. See, to be filled out by seller's agent. So if they don't, you're not going to stop your offer, but you could say, hey, can you send back the back page with your email in, or if it's already executed, get the DEDA form from them and ask them to fill it out so you have a delivery email. And if they refuse, you're not going to stop your deal, but now you got to get confirmation. This way's easy because it's sent, it's delivered. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we can't fill this out for the seller's side. They have to fill it out, only them.
Anytime it says the buyer has to fill out their stuff, they have to fill it out. We have to fill out ours
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah. But I would want this filled out entirely by the seller's side. Hopefully when they send it back to you, they've done it. If they haven't, you could just politely say, can you fill this out, including your email? Yeah. Okay.
I've seen it where everything else is filled out except the email address, and then the seller's listing agent will fill it out, just the email.
That's what happened to me.
Mm.
So I don't want to be dealing with that again. See, when I get caught in something, the lesson sticks forever with me. Cause that was just new. And then the lady's like, no, no, you got to keep calling him until he answers. So that's what I did. Yeah. Day and night. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that you learned a little bit, and I will stop the share. Thank you, I-10 George Realty, I-10 Partners, for attending today's meeting. I hope these little tidbits will help you in your future transactions. Have a great weekend.